What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Insights. I'm your host, Andrew Glisson. We've got a great show lined up for you guys today. Our very first guest when we come out back from the break is a guest that we've had on the show before. It's Gino Barbaro with Jake and Gino. They own several thousand units, multifamily units in East Tennessee. And Gino and Jake, as partner, they also have a coaching program where they introduce people into the multifamily investing world and take them from start to finish into investing in multifamily, which was where a lot of you guys want to go. We hear from you every week that you want to hear from people that have invested in real estate before. And so we try to bring you folks that have done this. I just want to tell you straight out of the gates that having a mentor, if you're thinking about investing in real estate, is a critical piece of having success. Now more than ever, interest rates are up, costs are up, everything is more expensive when you're buying and running real estate. So having somebody on your team, in your corner, fighting for you, teaching you the ins and outs of the business is more important now than it ever was. We could make a lot of mistakes in the past when we were buying things when the interest rate was really low. So we could make all these mistakes and we were saved because we didn't have a lot of debt service, and we could, we could make it up throughout the year as income came in. It's harder now. So I want to introduce you guys to Gino. If you've been following the show for a long time, you've seen him on the show before. If you haven't been following the show for a long time, this is one of my favorite guests that I'm going to interview, super positive, and I hope you stick around. We've got a lot of guests on the show today, and we'll be right back. We're going to have a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Gino Barbaro. All right, Gino, welcome back to the show. We've got Gino Barbaro on, and Gino, you're one of my favorite people to talk to on the show. Gino owns a few thousand units in Knoxville, Tennessee, multifamily. And Gino, I wanted to ask you, what are some common exit strategies? When people invest in real estate, at some point, they want to monetize that investment. Passive investors, they want to hold on to it for forever, but at some point you got to do something with that asset. What are some common exit strategies in the multifamily world?
Before I even mention the exit strategies, I want to dispel a myth for real estate investors out there. Yeah. You always hear you make money on the buy. And that's true. You do make some money on the buy. You buy it right, you cash flow a little bit, but you make money on the exit. That's where you crystallize your cash flow. And you think about it with a single family home. You buy it for $100,000. You make a couple $100 a month in cash flow. Great. That looks good. Pays the bills, puts some money in your pocket. But 3 or 4 years later, when that house is worth $150,000 and you exit it, that's when you make those big chunks of cash. There's a couple ways to really materialize the exit strategy. And it's really important. Every time you look at a deal in real estate, the idea is that 3 pillars of real estate. It's the market cycle you're in, it's the debt component, but it's the exit strategy. And some exit strategies are different than others. Some you may want to buy and hold forever. I guess you could do that. When you pass away, it's going to somebody else. So just understand that. And an old asset only gets older. So understand, if you're going to buy and hold these assets for a long time, maybe start buying newer assets. I mean, the second exit strategy is really buy and sell. I mean, it depending upon your time frame. Do you want to reposition the property? Do you want to hold it? And in commercial real estate, it really depends upon the debt. What's the term of the debt? Do you have a 3-year term, a 5-year term, a 10-year term, a 12-year term? Whatever the term is, you may want to line yourself up with the sell in comparison with the term. Now, what Jake and I like to do, we like to buy and refinance. That's our exit strategy. Our exit strategy is to add a ton of value, go to the bank, refinance that capital out, we've crystallized it, and then move on to the next deal. That's how we get our capital for our next deal.
In terms of like diversification, what a lot of people say, you got to diversify geographically, diversify with, asset class, diversify a lot of different ways in real estate. How do you suggest, you and you own a lot of units in Knoxville, Tennessee. I own a lot of units in Memphis, Tennessee. So we're not very geographically diversified. So how do you suggest that, people diversify their risk in how many different ways in real estate?
Well, Andrew, depending on your experience, I would say you could possibly diversify markets. I know you're in the west part of Tennessee. Maybe you come to the east part of Tennessee. If you're really good at an asset and you really excel at that, why would you diversify? One way we've diversified, believe it or not, is we may buy different asset unit mixes. We may like to buy 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, three bedrooms. So when there's a family that's in a one bedroom, they've outgrown that unit mix. They got to go to a two bedroom. Hey, by the way, we've got a two bedroom and two
Yep.
bedrooms. When they're expanding the families, we have three bedrooms. It's a great way to diversify when you're looking at it from that perspective. And maybe you want to diversify asset types. You may have some type of student housing that wants to go to market, or if you have some type of, 70s or 80s product that's a little bit older, you may want to go into some type of newer products. I think the idea is as you get more experience, you understand what asset types and what unit types do really well in your market. And that's what you're focusing on. For us in Knoxville, there aren't many three bedrooms in Knoxville. So whenever we find a three bedroom come online, we want to buy that because they do really well with what we call profit per unit. That's what we focus on. So three bedrooms do excellent in our market. So understand your market and understand where the sweet spot is in your market.
Do you guys develop at all? Do you just buy old, renovate, you do the value add and all that kind of stuff? Have you thought about developing or have you developed three bedroom units since
Andrew,
those do so well?
yeah, you're just hitting one of my pain points right now. We've got two parcels of property, a 67 acre and a 70 acre.
Nice.
And listen, a couple of years ago when the market was going crazy, it was very difficult to buy, to buy multifamily. And we were buying smaller, scattered sites. And we came across these two different parcels. On one of them, it's 67 acres. We've got the ability to build 291 single family
Wow.
homes. And we want to do build to rent.
Oh,
Yeah, like you just said,
nice.
wow, it's such an overwhelming concept because we've never built before. So we're thinking about starting out small, but we want to build these. They're going to be three bed, two and a half baths. They're going to crush it. I mean, the build rent model, newer assets, real easy
Love it.
to manage, but it's going to take a lot longer to develop. And it's one of those things where, hey, 24, 36 months down the road, there's no cash flow today, but we understand when we build that and when it gets done, it's going to be a really amazing asset.
Do you plan to have similar amenities in a build to rent single family home community that you would have in an apartment
That's a great
world?
question. That really depends upon the market itself and what type of
Yeah,
tenants you're trying to attract. Hey, listen, I want the high speed internet. I really would like to have a clubhouse there. I really would like to have a pool there as well. I would like to have a dog park there. Those are the amenities I think that when you're doing a build to rent, when you want to attract that resident that's going to want to stay there, it feels like a community. It feels like a home to them.
sure.
And why would they
Yeah.
leave? Even with these the electric vehicles, the EVs, putting an EV in their garage, things like that, where you can think outside the box, smart locks, smart thermostats, all of those amenities that you would look at in a luxury A apartment. Why can't you build them into these apartment complexes? And once they're in, I mean, they're in for the next 10, 15 years. You're set.
So you guys, this is a little bit of a different, this is diversification for you guys, right? Because
It
you're
is.
used to doing the apartment model, but
It
now it's
is.
the single family rental model. So
It
have you,
is.
what were some of the kind of the things that as you were planning this community and designing it, what are some of the things, the factors that you look at as you're kind of stepping into a new, a new world here?
It is a new world, but I think it's a very similar world. It's as if you're having like a 291 unit apartment complex. It's all
Yep.
contiguous. They're all located in the same location. I would
Right.
venture to say that
True.
these are probably easier to manage than our assets because these are going to be brand new. I mean, you're going to be able to attract really quality tenants there. The median income of the area is really high as well. It's in a great part of the city. So when we're looking at it, I think most of our manage right principles are going to really blend really well with this type of asset. And when you build new, it's going to be very low maintenance. I mean, there's not really many things that are going to be breaking. So it's really about the lease up. And once you have the lease up, to
Yep.
be able to deliver that superior customer service.
That sounds awesome. I look forward to following that journey with you
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you.
When it comes to deciding whether to buy and hold an asset or buy and sell, what are some things that people should think about? If they're looking to flip a property or the exit, like you just suggested. What you and I do is the Burr model. We cash out, refinance. We take our money out of the deal, move on to the next one. When should people do that, or when should they improve it and sell it?
Wow, that's a great question, and we could spend hours on it. But the short answer to that is it depends upon your experience and the need for capital. If you need capital tomorrow and you need all of your capital back because you're going to put it in a different asset, I would say sell. The other, I think, time you'd want to sell an asset is if it becomes functionally obsolescent. If you've got an
Yep.
asset that, hey, it's got, air conditioning that's not central air, and you're like, you know what, I really want to step up this asset and get out of it because I bought it really well, but I want to roll that money over. That's another time when you say to yourself, hey, let me sell this asset. Or if you see that the market's coming at a high and you're like, you know what, I am never going to sell this asset for this price for the next 5 years. Let me get out right now. I would consider doing that. There's one other time that I would really consider doing it. If the market turns, if you're in a neighborhood or in an area where all of a sudden you see median income start dropping and you just don't like what's going on in that neighborhood and you can tell that that's going on, hey, maybe it's time to sell that property. And I would always venture to say, always think about ROE, which is return on effort. If you've got a property that's doing pretty good, but Andrew, if you're there every week with tenant problems, with crime, with just things that are soul sucking, is it worth that extra 3 or 4% rate of return? I would venture, after doing this for years, it may not. So if your property checks any one of those boxes, go back on what I listened to, go and sell the property. Don't wait.
And last question on this. The lending environment has gotten super challenging, right? So are you seeing more flippers in the market than buy and hold people because the numbers, they can't make the DSCR work or the income make sense?
We're seeing a lot more seller financing, which is what I like. And believe it or not, multifamily is down 60% transaction volume. That's what's happened. I mean, a lot of the players out there, if you're a person who doesn't have to sell, now is not the time to sell. As I love to say, you can always buy real estate. It's always the right time to buy it. Using different strategies, you may have to overpay, but you can't always sell real estate. And this is one of the parts of the cycle where, you know what, if you can hold on to your properties. If you have to sell, you just have to understand you're going to sell at a discount because interest rates are higher, cost of capital is higher, and there's not as much demand because there are a lot of limited partners and people who've put money into deals. Those deals aren't working. So if my deal ain't working now, I'm not giving Andrew more of my money to go out and buy another deal. So the demand is down. And once supply starts to catch up, we're going to see prices dropping a lot faster.
I agree with you. There's not a lot of people that say that, but you heard it from Gino himself. Look, down on the lower thirds, you guys can see how to reach out to Gino. You guys should look him up, follow him on Facebook. They've got a great business in Knoxville, Tennessee. Gino, always good to have you on the show here. We appreciate the time. We'll be right back, everybody. We're going to run to a commercial break.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, everybody, we're welcoming Griselda Abousleman back to the show. And Griselda owns and operates a number of short-term rentals down in Texas. Griselda, I wanted to ask you, welcome to the show. I wanted to ask you from a sustainability perspective, is it possible to have sustainability in the short-term rental business?
Oh, absolutely. And my pleasure to be here, Andrew. Thank you so much. But absolutely. So, for example, in our case, in the southern part of Texas, it's a hurricane-prone environment. Every year, there's about one different category, whether it's, 2, 3, 5 sometimes. But in terms of short-term rentals, what I find for sustainability, one thing that actually tenants also look for is that eco-friendliness. That's been a recurring trend in the market lately. But from an ICF perspective, that's one of the things that we have done to incorporate sustainability. So insulated concrete forms is the practice of the build, and it's a pretty neat one that is very extremely efficient on heating, cooling, resistant to mold, mildew, and anything like that. So from a time, labor perspective, ICF builds are phenomenal. Obviously, I live in Florida now. The homes are in Texas. And for that hurricane severe weather, it's absolutely a great, great benefit. So from a homeowner perspective, definitely time saver, lower cost to build, less time. And then also from a safety standpoint, right? For example, there was a hurricane out in Florida. I think it was Hurricane Michael in 2018. If you Google that and you look through the video of the damage that Hurricane Michael did in the panhandle of Florida, you'll see a lot of the homes that did not make it, but ICF homes that were building and standing up still. So definitely a lot of benefits from energy efficiency, even homeowners looking for saving money on their energy bills. Huge savings from like 80, 85, 90% sometimes.
Wow. So an ICF build, are they building single family homes like that, that are 1,500, 2,000 square feet, or is it reserved for some of the larger, more luxurious homes?
So it's a little bit of both. So for example, in the one of our short-term rentals, it is a luxury short-term rental, and it is a 3-story build, but I have seen them in 2-story builds. I have not seen them actually in the one, or at least not one that we have. I'm sure they're out there, but
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot more moving in that direction of sustainability and eco-friendliness, and then just watching out for the environment and things like that.
Yeah.
So are they out there? Absolutely. I see them all over the place in Florida. I see them really all over the country. But me
That's interesting.
personally, we have the higher homes, and they're short-term rentals, but they're for families and things like that.
Right. Out of curiosity, did you guys build that property new?
It did,
Did you
yes.
buy it after it was built? Okay, so you built it new. So what was the difference in the building construction costs from, just traditional typical frame construction to a concrete form? Or did you have to build a concrete form? Maybe it's the regulation.
So we did not have to build a concrete form, but we noticed that there were actually very few to none. We couldn't find one, but I think there are some now, but ours was one of the first ones on South Padre Island. But we
Wow.
did it because it's very, very energy efficient. It is cleaner. The ambiance inside the home is cleaner air, for energy, heating, cooling is definitely a huge benefit. But in terms of cost overall, I think it was about 35–40% lower cost simply because it's a lot faster to make. So think of it this way. There's
Wow.
two, call it foams, right? It's some material, but 2 foams put together with some engineered web-like structure, like cross ties. And so it's really, you're just stacking up foams on top of each other, like Legos, like my kids
Yeah.
could build it. They're teenagers. But you put those concrete forms together and then you just pour the concrete. So in terms of the speed to build a home, very much faster, like half the time or less,
Man,
right? And not
that
just
is
that,
something else.
simplicity,
And it's less
simplicity.
expensive than frame construction. Why does everybody not do that?
Absolutely, that is the trend, and actually, I see that happening. There's a lot more coming, but it's just a simple build. It's lower labor. It's much faster, and I'll even tell you this: during that construction of that one home that I'm thinking in Texas, there was a little bit of a storm during the build. So you can see these like concrete forms. They're like Lego blocks made out of foam with
Yeah.
webs in between, but they're standing upright to create the walls that are going to be pouring the concrete into. But there was a small storm. Hey, half the wall came out. And my brother, who's the business partner, he's like, "Hey, we got the wall come down. It's going to big delay on the home." I'm like, "No problem. In a day, they'll have it back up." And sure enough, within 4 to 5 hours, it's like Legos, the wall went back up and the pouring of the concrete came in the next day.
Man, that's something else.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I did not realize that was becoming the construction trend, I guess. You see it all over the place in Florida,
Yes,
but South Texas, I mean, I think they should build properties like that everywhere. Is it
absolutely.
so I'm assuming once you build the concrete form walls, then you're just floating sheetrock, kind of inside of that. Electrical,
Absolutely.
electricity, plumbing, the whole thing is inside
Absolutely.
those concrete
Yeah,
walls.
everything else comes kind of standard, but think of the soundproofingness in that type of a home. So our tenants, for example, love the fact that
For
it's completely
sure.
soundproof inside the 4 walls of the home. It's much cooler, for example. There's no mold, mildew, there's no
Yeah.
insects, there's no little rodents or anything like that could find in a typical home in a wood frame. They don't find any of that in our home, so they really get delighted with the experience of like, wow, this is a
Man.
full, eco-friendly, nice home that, from our perspective, it's a much lower cost to maintain because it's energy efficient.
100%. Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. And wood it just breaks down over time. You
Mhm.
get a little bit of water and wood rots and it turns into a cancer and it travels. And I mean,
Mhm.
if it's just a concrete building, there's none of that. So do
There's
you
none of that.
promote the fact that is a concrete building in your Airbnb advertisements?
We do actually, and people actually enjoy that, and they've told us in our reviews that that's something that they like, simply because it's unique, it's different, and it's a new experience for them. And so they ask us a lot of questions about it as well. And so we're like, "Oh yeah, cool." No, I'm not saying that they're going to go do it with their home, but they get a lot of good ideas of like, "Oh wow, this is the future. This is like pioneering the future in home builds,"
Yeah.
and that's really what it is. Because you can, sometimes depending on, the net zero factor, for example, I'm sure you've heard of that, right? But
Yep.
having that completely insulated home, it's a lot better from a perspective of a homeowner, but also from their standpoint too. Instant hot water, for example, with energy saving circulating system, you can have hot water instantly in your shower, in your sink, or anything like that. So there's a lot of benefits, a lot of benefits that come with it. And obviously, I have homes in Florida and Texas. we get hit by hurricanes all the time. And so that is definitely one of the huge benefits, right? The safety factor for when
Oh
hurricanes
man,
hit, ICF homes will
for
not go down.
sure. No, that is great. It's cheaper to build, more energy efficient, better in a hurricane. It should be the standard. Have
Absolutely.
you had people tell you that, look, we looked at different Airbnbs and we chose your house because it was, a concrete building? Have you had people tell you that that's the reason why, from an eco-friendly standpoint, they chose you?
Not yet. So no, not to that extent. But we do find that there's eco-friendliness, like on Airbnb, for example, is this an eco-friendly home? And so we do sense that the market trend is going in that direction, but it's not a
Yep.
requirement by any means. It's a cool, nice to have. It's a cool perk right now. But I'm pretty sure that as people experience that a lot more, it's going to become a little bit more prevalent. But right now, it's more of a nice to have.
Yeah,
From
that's cool.
us, it's a huge benefit from a cost standpoint, and the tenants really enjoy the efficiency of the home, the brightness, the fact that there's no mold and mildew or anything like that that some of these older homes tend to have. Ours, they don't have a single worry about that. Their kids are like roaming free and totally safe.
I love it. Well, look, before we went on air, I've got a minute and a half left. You told me that you're kind of traveling around doing some book signings, and everybody, Griselda's a best-selling author. So tell us about the book that you're signing, and the new book that you've got out.
Absolutely. So just last week, I was in Chicago at Northeastern Illinois University doing the book signing and a presentation. And that was a lot of fun. That book was called Extraordinary Latinas. And it was with one of my co-authors of that book. She went to NEIU. I did not. But in a couple of weeks, I go to my hometown in Brownsville, Texas, close to where this home that I'm talking about is. And I have my own book signing there at a school, at the university as well. And that book is called Life Beyond the Border. And really the main topics there is how do you turn adversity into a huge advantage? But those are the two books, and I'm really excited to go out and meet people and sign their books and talk to them about resilience.
That's really cool. Well, everybody, if you can see it right there. We put it up on the screen for you. There's Griselda's website. So you guys should look her up, Lean Business Excellent. Griselda, we'll have you back on the show. Really appreciate the time today. And everybody, as we part, there it goes. So we'll, go check out her book. It's Amazon, it's in Barnes and Noble all over the place. So Griselda, thanks again. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Have a good one.
We'll be right back, everybody. David Aaronson, welcome back to the show. David Aaronson, guys, if you've watched the show for any length of time, we've had David on a number of times. One of my favorite guests. David is the owner of Refuel Electric Vehicle Solutions, REVs for short. And to those of you who watch the show, no secret, they install electric vehicle charging stations, primarily in multifamily apartment complexes. And David, I wanted to ask you, costs for everything are going up, and people are concerned about budgets. How do you develop budgetary estimates for what a refueling station or series of stations is going to cost at an apartment complex?
Well, first off, thanks for having me again, Andrew. I appreciate it, and
Absolutely.
I hopefully add something to some value to your listeners.
100%.
It all starts with the apartment complex. Every apartment complex was designed in a way to provide electricity to the residents and all the amenities that they have there, but they never were designed to host electricity for EV charging stations. So it all starts with getting an electrician to the property, having them look at where your existing electrical panels are and how far they are from the parking spots that you want to use for the EV parking spaces.
Gotcha. And I was talking to, I've just been surprised personally. We do a lot of single family residential work, and I've been very surprised recently about the cost of just wire. We used to pay for a 200-foot spool of wire, we would pay $400. It's now $900. So have you seen that on your end? Has all the components gone up in price like we're experiencing on our side?
It has. Everything's gone up in price, but there's some tricks we have that can help lower the price. For example, it's not just the hard goods that have gone up; it's the labor that's gone up too. And so we have it coming at us on both sides, but
Yep.
we've been pretty successful at figuring out the most cost-efficient places to put the EV charging stations.
Yep.
And of course, the closer it is to the electrical panel, the less expensive it is to install.
Right. Are you guys having your team do that installation, David? Or are you hiring subcontractor, local electricians in whatever market that is, do it?
Yeah, we all the time will hire a local electrician because they're familiar with the local permitting process
Right.
and the local laws. But we give them specific instructions as to what to do. And this is where a lot of our competition, where we're able to beat the competition, because we are going in, and because we know the multifamily sector and how it's constructed, we're telling them exactly what we want done. We're not
Right.
leaving to them to make these decisions as to where the charging station goes. We're telling them where we want it to go. We're telling them what size conduit we want them to use. We're telling them what
Gotcha.
gauge wire we want them to use. So a lot of times they will, on their own, select things that maybe are not the most cost efficient for their client.
That makes sense. So that was my next question, is how much training, do you guys actually give those local electricians before they go on site? But it sounds like you guys develop the blueprint, hand it to them. So there's no thinking that you need to do. It's like, we're giving you, we've done all the thinking for you. Now just install this.
Well, it depends, yes, it depends. A couple of states have requirements for EV charging station installers that have to be met. And so they have requirements at a state level. Most states don't have that yet, but you can guess the ones that do. California's at the top of the list. And there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it besides just installing an EV charging station. I mean, right now, one of the things we're dealing with is ADA requirements.
Interesting.
Because almost, many municipalities require us to put a space there, a charging station for their residents who need use of the handicap space.
Right.
And a lot of people try to understand what that means, and every municipality is different when it comes to that. Do you need to put a ramp in the sidewalk? Do you need, some do, some require it, some don't. Do the parking spaces need to be at a special slope? Some do, some don't. Is it grandfathered? Is it behind the gates? Is it public charging or private charging? There's a lot of things that go into this, okay? But with regards to the electricians, yes, even though they've put up charging stations at this point, we are telling them exactly where we want it and exactly what we want them to do. And that's what separates us from our competition.
Do you ever have to, what other types of infrastructure, around those parking spaces do you have to work with? Are you pouring new concrete, installing new landscaping? I mean, you talked about ADA requirements, potentially ramps, occasionally have to get installed. What are the other kind of factors around that area where you decide to install things, just other than simply how far away it is from the box?
Really, the ADA is the only thing that we have to deal with. And like I said, it's different everywhere. I mean, there's federal laws that govern ADA as far as the size of the parking spaces go. In many cases, we need to take 3 spaces of the existing parking to make it into 2 spaces so we can comply with the ADA. But
Gotcha.
Other than that, that's pretty much it at this point.
That makes sense.
And by the way, a few years ago, when the industry was newer, people were not even thinking of ADA. So now it's a new add-on, and it's something else we get to deal with.
What are some of the most challenging places that you can install? What would be like a very challenging scenario when you go to analyze a new client, a new apartment complex? What would be a challenging installation
Well,
at that place?
the first challenge is how much spare electricity do they have on their panels? If they have none, then that's a challenge. We can't just make electricity. So we have to find a way to see if the utility company will provide it at an affordable rate, so we can then put up the charging station. But that's where it all starts, is with the property. And we see a lot of people in our business sell the machines, and then when they get out to install it, they realize, oh, well, this is going to be a very expensive install because there's no electricity. The client doesn't even know this. They made the decision to buy the equipment without understanding the total cost.
Right.
And so, it's all about the property and their electrical capacity.
Yeah. So you find sometimes that,
and not a single one of them has enough, by the way. It's an issue for every property.
So you find that you've got to bring in, like, I guess you got to work with a local utility to bring new electricity. Is it bigger lines, a new pole with a new transformer? How does that?
Occasionally it's just, and I'm not an electrical expert, but occasionally we have to deal with the utility companies if there's no room on the panel. And everyone's different. And yes, some of them will need to bring in a new line, new service, new pole. Others, it's just a matter of, it doesn't even seem like a lot of work. They just go out there in one day, and next thing you know, you have more power. We're not seeking a whole lot of power. Okay. And the ones we've brought new power, we've basically can do what 100 kVA, which is a lot of power, but it's not enough to really strain the utility company as far as their products go. So we usually can put 8 or 10 charging stations on that.
So this might be a little bit of an ignorant question, but I don't know enough about power and power requirements and usage to ask it more smartly. But compare a charging station to a hot tub for me. How much power does a hot tub draw? Is it 10 charging stations or one? What would it be akin to?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked at my electrical panel for the hot tub in my house, but it's probably on a 20 amp circuit.
Yeah.
Okay. And a charging station, a level 2 charging station, needs to be on a minimum of a 40 amp circuit.
Okay.
We see a few done on 30 amp circuits. That's not great. A 40 amp circuit will give you 7 kilowatts to the charging station an hour, or about 7.
Okay. That gives me a frame of reference then.
Okay. All right. Good.
Well, David, thanks a lot, man. I've run us out of time, but it's always fun to talk to you about these things. And look forward to having you back on the show. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we're welcoming back Ellie Perlman, who is no stranger to the show. Ellie, I hope you're doing well today. I wanted to ask you, kind of straight out of the bat, or straight out of the gates, how does technology influence in the multifamily world? How technology is moving very fast. So over the last 3 or 4 years in our business, we've changed. The game has changed on the way people apply for our properties, the way they tour the properties. In the multifamily world, how has technology accelerated over the last few years to where it's at now?
Yeah. Andrew, it's a very interesting question, because real estate historically has been an industry that has been resistant to change, and technology advancement is not something that we see very often. With the rise of AI, there is an increased demand and need to actually deploy those technologies. I would say that we do see some change in the last couple of years when it comes to implementing technology, and we are using AI across the board with when it comes to capital raising, asset management, acquisitions, dispositions. We use it pretty heavily, but not everyone does. It's unclear right now how widespread what the adoption rate would be for AI technology, but it does give you advantage if you are using it. Because I'll give you one example. There could be 10 firms that are underwriting deals. They're looking at reports, and and at their portfolios, and they make an assumption about rent growth. And then there's a company that does all that, but in addition, looking at an AI-backed technology that predicts what would be the rent growth at that specific property that they're underwriting in the next, 2, 3, 4 years. And that gives you a lot of power to use data that competitors don't have. So it could be very
Smart.
impactful. But it's still not second nature in our industry. Adopting technology is something that has historically been done very slowly.
So you mentioned, using AI to forecast rent growth. I mean, that would be kind of an emerging trend in the market. Is there a specific location company that you go to find that those sources and solutions? Is it
There are multiple of
ChatGPT
them.
or
No, there are multiple of them. They're very real estate focused. So one of them is ARM, is AI revenue management, that
interesting?
essentially can give you daily pricing for rents per unit, depending on the demand for that specific unit type and layout, how many tenants are going to leave because their lease ends. So it predicts, what would be the availability of each unit, and they pricing they're essentially the platform prices the value of the rent on a daily basis for each layout, for each unit. But we also have a proprietary technology in collaboration with Archer AI that enables us to underwrite a lot faster. So something that usually takes 2, 3 hours, we do it in 20 minutes,
Wow.
because the technology can actually do it in a much more sophisticated and efficient way. And this technology is also, allowing us to zero in on trends on markets, not just to do underwriting a deal level. And there's a third one that we're using, Axiometrics, from RealPage. And essentially, this technology allows us to predict the occupancy, concessions, and other factors related to the specific property that we're looking at. So we're using multiple sources of AI-backed technologies across the board. And there are a lot of other good technologies, good platforms out there that are very specific to real estate, to multifamily, they're very tailored to what we need.
Have you found that these are accurate in the numbers that your team would underwrite over 2 or 3 hours? The 20-minute underwrite, do the numbers match?
Yeah, it's very, very accurate. This is just so we all understand, we don't spend only 3 hours per deal. This is just the back of an
Of course.
envelope, kind of quick underwriting,
Of
just
course.
to
Yep.
see if the deal works, if it's a yay or nay, if we want to,
Right.
put more effort into it. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
extremely accurate, and it takes the human, it reduces human error, because essentially these are multiple computers talking to one another and presenting a model that is complete, and it's integrated. It's an add-on in our proprietary underwriting model, and so it does the work a lot faster and a lot, in a more accurate way. And of course, you still need a warm body, like we call it in the industry, to go
Right.
and review it, adjust it, tweak it. But it takes a lot of the manual work that is not the best value of my people. And it turns underwriters from those who take data, implement it, and then tweak it, to those who are managing the process, and diving deeper to adjust the data based on what we need.
That's smart. Ellie, for investors that are looking to invest with firms like you guys that are raising money, buying buildings, how do you convey what you guys do on the AI side, which in my opinion makes you more competitive than a lot of firms that are doing this? How do you convey that to investors?
So essentially, what we explain is that we're using AI in order to predict market trends and to help us build our pro forma. So it's not a wishful thinking, and we don't also operate out of fear. So
Right.
rent growth, for instance, can make or break a deal. If you assume 2% or 1% rent growth year over year in your model versus 3 or 4%, that could be the difference between 11% IR and 15%. It's that dramatic. And so we essentially say that we take the emotions and the part in us that is biased in order, because we all want to close deals. We take it out of the equation and we let the data speak to us and guide us in making those decisions. So, underwriting and real estate acquisitions, it's part art and part science. And we're able to move a big portion from the art side of it to the science part of it. There's still going to be, and we're still going to review it. We're still going to see if it makes sense to us. There's still a lot of the art side of it. But the science part of it, which is the AI, is actually taking a bigger part. So we are more well informed and we can make better investment decisions that ultimately will benefit our investors.
Yep. AI is changing the game, that's for sure. Ellie, in the couple of minutes that we have left, everybody's always asking about where rates are going, what's going to happen in the future. Give us your opinion. We've closed the first quarter of the year. What do you think is going to happen for the rest of the year on where interest rates go and how the lending environment's going to be?
Nobody knows. I was hoping that rates are going to start going down in Q2. It does not look like that's going to be the case. We're probably looking at Q4, maybe Q3. Everyone was hoping for 3 rate cuts. It looks like it's going to be 2 to 3, just based on what the Feds are communicating. It's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a tough year. And I don't like this phrase, survive until 2025. And it looks like everyone is trying, to do that. We're really focused on assets that we can assume the loan. So we have 3-4% fixed rate, for instance. And so the current environment is not directly impacting some of the newest acquisitions. And that's one way of taking some of the imbalance, in the market, because we really don't know what's going to happen. I think there's 80% chance that rates are going to go down, but we don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how significant it's going to be.
Does it make sense to, if you find, the right asset, I mean, I guess you have to run a financial model on this, but does it make sense to have an interest only loan for a certain period of time and, with a decent, yield maintenance on there? Does it make sense to go interest only for a period of time on if it's a good asset?
Yeah, we usually do get loans when the asset is solid, then you usually get interest only for 5, 7, 10 years. And then you need to return the loan, obviously. And if it matches your exit strategy in terms of the term and the whole period, then it will be a good fit. It's a little bit more tricky if you're placing debt on the property that has only 2 years of interest only, but you're planning on holding it for 5 years or 7 years. Then you're taking a bigger risk that you will need to refinance in 2 years, and who knows how that's going to look like, and what's going to be the debt environment at that point.
Makes sense. Ellie, thanks again. Appreciate you joining us on the show, and best of luck. We'll be right back, everybody. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us on this week's episode. We're always here on Now Media TV, Thursdays at 5 o'clock. We're going to introduce you guys and talk to people that are investing in real estate, that are, helping people that invest in real estate, that are contractors. We are all over the map when it comes to real estate. And we like to have you here watching the show with us, joining us, asking us questions. Listen, I want to tell you guys one thing. The interest rate environment is crazy right now. And so I know a lot of real estate investors watch this show. You invest in single family, multifamily, industrial, you're all over the board. And it's kind of survive till 2025, as you heard one of our guests say a little bit earlier. The idea is to invest in good quality assets. Don't overpay for anything right now. Scrutinize your budgets, scrutinize every purchase price. Don't buy crazy things. The market's going to come back, and it's going to be, I mean, look, real estate investing has been the same for over 100 years. You buy good quality assets, you make recurring income off of that, and at some point you exit that asset, whether it's a sell or you refinance your money out of it. So we're going to talk about that a lot on the show. Appreciate you guys being with us, and we'll see you here next week.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation.